Welcome to My Latest Fixation. I'm Joshua, and I have a habit of digging into things that don't quite make sense. Think of this as a cabinet of curiosities for the beautifully bizarre. From lonely cryptids wandering through the static, to horror, gaming, obscure history, and the strange little piece of human connection. This is where we take a closer look at all the odd little things that don't quite add up. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's see where this one takes us. Today's episode is a Father's Day special, and I'm trying something a little different. Instead of a panel, it's just one dad, one life, one perspective, and one very real experience of what fatherhood looks like day to day. Today's guest is Brett, a father of two, a lover of Christ, and someone bringing his own honest, grounded perspective to what it means to show up as a dad every day. Quick shout out from him as well. His friend's band, Penny Fountain, is available on all streaming services, so be sure to check them out. One dad, one set of stories, one voice walking us through things like what bedtime actually looks like at his house, how many times he's had to say no today, and whether he's ever hidden food in the car just to avoid a lunch standoff. So this is for the dads, for people who have dads, for people who are thinking about being dads, and for anyone who's ever looked at parenting and thought, wow, that looks exhausting and also kind of amazing. So hey, Brett, welcome.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me, man. I'm fucking hyped to be here.
Absolutely. So I know we've kind of already talked a little bit ahead of time, but I'm just going to kind of go through some questions and answers and you know, just to go with all this so we can kind of get a feeling of what it's like to be a dad. So first things first, what's your name? How old are you? And how many kids do you have?
My name is Brett. I am a father of two, and I am 27 years old. My firstborn was born when I was 23, and it's been fun being a young dad.
So you said your first one was born when you were 23. The last one was born last year? Is that right?
Yeah, back in last November. He was born on Veterans Day at 4:30 in the morning.
That's exciting, man. So far, what is the most ridiculous thing your kid has asked you to do in public? Or asked you in public?
Asked me to do in public? Honestly, as a father, I've learned that the less self-esteem that you have, the better off you are. So I couldn't really tell you the last ridiculous thing my son asked me to do because I normally also do ridiculous things anyway in public. But I will say personally, one of the craziest things my son has asked me to do is buy him the Lego Titanic. And he doesn't want me to buy it where we build it and put it together. He just wants me to buy one so that way we can push it into a lake to see if it floats.
Yeah. I don't think it will.
No, he's watched countless YouTube videos on the Lego Titanic and Lego ships and stuff, and every time the Lego Titanic sinks immediately.
Yeah. You know what you should though, if you ever get it for him, you should do it with the polymer so it'll actually float. Just like coat it.
You know, I've thought about it, but you know how much that dang Lego set is?
I'm imagining thousands upon thousands.
It's like $750. It's almost the whole brand for a Lego set of the Titanic, you know, and it comes in three different, we've seen one before too. It comes in three different parts that you build. Like it's one big box with three individual boxes that you build it on. And it's mainly like a model for like, you know, adult stuff like that. And man, this little boy's just obsessed with it. So like every time he gets a Lego or something, he's like, Lego Titanic? I'm going to build a Titanic, Daddy. And I'm like, rock on, brother.
I don't know, man. I like Legos as much as anyone else, but I couldn't imagine being able to sit down and like actually build out a Titanic.
It's wild to me. It's wild. It's a very large set. I mean, I'm sure that there's some, you know, Lego people, model collectors, et cetera, that knows how to do that stuff in a timely fashion. But I know with like the way that my life is, I could not.
So I once dated someone who was really, really into Legos. And it was pretty interesting because it was kind of the first time as an adult that I had built Legos in a long time. And I will say it was a lot of fun. So I could see how being a dad, how you might want to mess with that stuff as well.
It's fun. It is fun. It's fun to build stuff with your boys. It's fun to build stuff with your kid. It's just fun to play with Legos in general. But it's a very big model. And when you're already limited on space, it's a lot. You know what I mean? Like, it's a big set. It's not a baby set. It's massive.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be in order for it to be as big as it is, Well, let's see. Moving on, what's the weirdest food combination your kid is obsessed with?
Tostino pizza and ketchup.
All right. I mean, that's what kind of Tostino's pizza?
Cheese pizza. Cheese Tostino's pizza, and he'll dip it in ketchup.
That's kind of weird, but I mean, I get it.
Or he dips his calamari in barbecue sauce. Like, you could take your pick.
That's honestly though, I think calamari would be really good in barbecue sauce. I mean, it's like Korean barbecue, right?
No. Straight up old-fashioned Sweet Baby Ray's. He's with it.
Yeah. What about you? Did you have anything weird as a kid? Like, did you also like calamari with a barbecue or?
No, it's actually kind of funny. So my mom would laugh about this, but I would eat like ice cream and then want like pickles afterwards. And I remember specifically one time, we used to stay in this like tiny duplex off of Holder Court in Lakeland. And we were sitting there. And I was like, yeah, Mom, I want some pickles. Or I got some pickles. And I was like, I'm going to get a bowl of ice cream. So my mom was like, are you pregnant? And I was so confused by it when I was a kid. But then, then my mom explained to me, like, when ladies get pregnant, that's what happens. They get weird cravings for stuff. So, with me, I just about eat anything that won't eat me first. So you could throw any weird thing in front of me and I'll be like, all right, I got to try it once.
Yeah, I will say the weirdest thing I've ever tried is kangaroo.
That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had other stuff that's like weird, but it was really good. I mean, kangaroo jerky was the only one I've had that I was like, this is disgusting.
Raccoon meat is really fun. You have to boil it first in order to get like, I don't know what it's quite called. I think it's the fat of the raccoon, but the fat makes it bitter. Something in the raccoon's meat makes it bitter, and you gotta like boil it out first, and then you can actually grill it and cook it and stuff.
That sounds disgusting, but I mean, I'm sure it's good if somebody likes it, right?
It's like gamey. It's very gamey and meh.
See, that's how crocodile is, and I actually like crocodile because it's kind of got like a little ground spice to it. But yeah. So let's see. What's something you swore you'd never do as a parent and then you did anyway?
Lie to my kids. I always told myself I wouldn't, withhold the truth or not tell the truth to my kids, this and that. But I find myself more often than not when I'm extremely stressed out. And he'll be like, Dad, are you okay? Because he'll ask me. He copies, right? The little kids are sponges. So they copy the people that's around them intensely. So my two sons, even my youngest right now, Dexter, he's loud as the rest of the family. It's a beautiful thing to watch them sponge everything, and you have to be careful with what you tell them because they don't understand tact. They don't understand withholding information properly. And what happens is when they don't do that, they'll go and they'll tell somebody, like, oh yeah, my dad's behind on this bill, my mom's behind on that bill. And it's like, you really don't want your kids telling people, right? So you kind of just tell them, no, I'm good. You just tell them, you're good, I'm good, all that goodness. And you just move on. Let them stress about that when they become adults and they become parents.
Oh, 100%, man. I mean, I maybe one day will become a kid. We'll see. Or, well, maybe one day I'll become a dad. But I know the second that they ask me something that I just don't have a logical answer for, or the second that I don't have like a really solid answer for, I'm just gonna have to probably lie anyway. I'm gonna probably be like, well, I don't know. Like, it also depends on how old they are. Like, if they're asking me about the birds and the bees and they're like 3, I'm not gonna, be like, well, a stork.
This is the thing, right? When you have kids like that, and your young kids aren't gonna ask about the birds and the bees and stuff unless they're being shown. Unless they know exactly what that is. your kids are more likely to immediately see someone in public that has some kind of handicap and ask quicker about that than they would the birds and the bees. So when you're standing in line at Walmart and somebody's in an electric wheelchair and they roll up behind you and your kid turns around real fast and he's like, "Daddy, why is their chair pushing them?" And then you got to explain why they're in the wheelchair, like not like, oh, you know, their whole shebang, their whole medical history, you know what I mean? But you're like, oh, they need the wheelchair so that way they can move like you can walk. And then, you know, or someone with like here's an example from when I was a kid, and I know it was really embarrassing for my mom, but there was a guy at McDonald's, and when they used to have the air hockey table and the play cage, there's a guy with a prosthetic leg. I was like 5, 6 years old, and I didn't know what that was. So I walked up and I said, "Hey, how does your leg fit in that too?" My mom's face beet red. She's running up. "I'm sorry." The dude's laughing. And obviously he was a good dude about it. So he explained like what it was and all that goodness, right? He didn't go into like detail. He's just like, "Oh yeah, I don't have a leg, so this is my leg." Right? Boom. But you're going to get caught off guard with those questions more. And sometimes you just, those kind of questions, like depending on what it is, you really can't answer them. You know what I mean? Like, you can answer them, but there's sometimes where you just can't. You know, like somebody sees somebody that's like sitting on the ground because they're homeless, and then they go, "Hey, Daddy, why is that person dirty?" Well, shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's very real.
And then you just say something along the lines of like, "Oh, he just needs to take a shower." You know, when you play in the sand and you get dirty, he just needs to take a shower and stuff. And you're like, you know what I mean? Like you have to come up with stuff like that, and that's not the truth at all. So it's stuff like that, like as a parent, that it makes it difficult to not tell your kids the truth, or to tell your kids the truth better.
Yeah, that's fair. So what would you say, well, what has fatherhood actually taught you?
Take it slow.
Taking it slow?
And enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself as a father. Be happy that you're there. You know what I mean? Be extremely happy that you're there. There's a lot of people that want to be fathers that can't be fathers, and there's a lot of people that don't want to be fathers that are fathers. And when you're somebody that wants to be a father and you are a father, but you're worried about your bills, you're worried about taking care of the house, you're worried about your kid's future, you're worried about this, you're worried about that, you oftentimes forget to be there with them in the moment. So when they're going, "Hey, will you play with Legos with me?" "Yeah, buddy, I will." Then you're building a block about part of the way through and you just stop. And you're like, start getting in your head. And you forget to be there.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a wonderful lesson to learn. I mean, I'm sure we all learn it in different ways, but there's something very motivating about your own kid being the one that's teaching it to you,
right,
and making you go slow with life. That's really valuable, I think.
It's the most valuable. I cannot be more thankful for it.
What was the moment that you first realized, oh, this is going to be my life now? I'm a dad.
I had 2 moments like that. The first one, one of my buddies, Skip, was having his 30th birthday party, and I was 22 at the time, and I was the partier, like super party, you know, party hardy. And so I pulled up to Skip's house early. Skip wasn't even there. He was working at like the day of his party, but he had like a half day. So I showed up to help Nina set up, his wife Nina set up. You know what I mean? Like it's on fire. We're on fire, you know, putting stuff together, and I'm drinking the bottle. Well, eventually I get about halfway down this bottle to myself. Skip shows up. I'm already even more crummy. Once he shows up, I have to be driven to my job because I worked at a pizza place and I was a manager there. I, pulled up to this job. I was all crunk and stuff, but it wasn't the first time that I had done it. I was just ready to go. You know what I mean? Like I was there. So I start clocking in, I clock in, get everybody prepped up, and then I go to the restroom. And while I'm sitting in the restroom, my wife calls me. She goes, "Hey, babe." And she was my girlfriend at the time. So she goes, "Hey, babe, can we talk?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up, baby?" She was like, "Well, I took a pregnancy test and it came back positive." So I was like, "I know false positives are a stretch." I was like, "Have you taken another?" She said, "I took 4, and all 4 of them came back positive." Now I'm sitting here, drunk, and just holding on for dear life in the bathroom. And my girl goes, "Hey, we're having a kid." Oh, man. Oh, no. What am I doing? So I paid one of my coworkers. I think I paid her like $60 because she had a party to go to. She said, the only way I'm leaving is if you pay me money, or if I'm not going to it is if you pay me money. I said, boom. How much you want? She said 100. I said 60. She said 70. I said 60. She said, all right. So I gave her 60. Boom, I was out of there. I didn't even clock out. I told Jordan, which was my assistant manager at the time, I said, you need to clock me out. Call my homie back up. Hey, I need to come back to the party. Sat there. I talked to his wife a little bit about, or his girl at the time, girlfriend at the time, whatever. You know what I mean. Talked to her about, what I was going to do. And she was like, well, what do y'all plan on doing? I was like, well, I'm ready if she keeps, I'm ready for it. And obviously she felt the same sentiment. She's like, no, I'm not getting rid of my baby. And I would never tell her to do that or anything like that neither. I'm always ready for it. You know what I mean? Like, if I make that mistake, I'll take care of the kid, no matter what happens. So next thing you know, get back home with an extra plate for her. We'll sit down and talk about it. Immediately that night, I cut off with a lot of people that I just did a lot of bad stuff with. And I started genuinely, in a matter of minutes after we decided what we were going to do, started growing instantly. The partying really stopped. Where it went from 10 to 15 people at the house every night, it dropped to like 4, 5 at most. I wanted quiet. I didn't want this loud, fun lifestyle because I had a pregnant, girl that needed her rest. She's forming a whole human,
I think that would be one of the hardest things in the world for me to do is if my partner got pregnant and, like whether or not we had chosen it or what, it doesn't really matter. I think I would have a hard time having to shift through my friends, I think I can honestly say most everyone I'm surrounded by right now are pretty good people. But I can only imagine having to, even as an adult, I had to sort of lay some boundaries and lay some lines out for people. And so I can only imagine if you have a kid on the way, it's I'm sure that's even more intense.
It makes it easier. If you're choosing to be a father, because when I was growing up, right, I didn't get my dad until I was 14. That's when my dad, not my biological father, he's my dad. You know what I mean? He came into my life. Completely turned my life and my mom's life around, led to a complete 180. And it was nice to have a dad. And for a long time, even at that time, right, when I was a boy, and I promise that I'm going to circle back to what we were talking about.
You're fine.
But as a boy, at that point in my life, because my biological father really wasn't the nicest person, right? I'm not going to get into it, but he really was not the nicest person. When I was that age, I had so many problems with authority figures, specifically male authority figures, because I really just didn't want to listen because it was only me and my mom mainly, together. I had my grandfather. I really only had my grandfather and my cousin Dewey as male role models. And even then, I'm not living with my grandparents, I'm living with my mom. And so I only get my grandparent whenever I see them. It's not that they didn't want to see me or anything, because they both worked at the time. My grandma worked for the sheriff's office, my grandfather for the school. So they were working, and my grandfather, he's 70-something years old, and he's still out there busting butt, working. That's a good example that I got from him when I was a kid, was a hard work ethic. Another person that was busting their butt was my mom. And my mom worked 2 jobs. There were plenty of times where after school I'd go with her to go clean bank, to go and do odd jobs for people, because my mom was trying to make ends meet, because there was a man who didn't know how to cut out the bad influences. I knew from a young age what I wasn't going to be, which was that. When I became a young man, it was hard for me to distinguish between myself following in his footsteps and realizing it, or being my own man. And because, it's the nature versus nurture thing. And I had my dad who was trying to help me. And when I was a young man, when we're all young, we make stupid mistakes. And same thing with my mom, she was doing her best to help me. But by that point, I had already had so many problems with authority figures, simply because why would I respect the one person? The one person I was supposed to love and care for me didn't respect me and didn't tell me I love you. Why would I respect somebody else? So when I first found out I was going to be a father, first thing I did was love and respect my wife. And I cut all the bad people out. All the people I knew I could get in a lot of trouble with. I stopped talking to them. And it was almost instantly, for most of them. It was probably, if they didn't get the, hey man, I gotta go, I got a kid on the way type stuff, and I just never called them, they just didn't get called. I stopped, because I knew that if I continued to go down the path of the party, or the path of all this, the badness, man, there was a chance that I would end up being the same way that my father was.
It's interesting that you had that sort of, you didn't really get to meet your dad until you were like 14, because I have a very similar story. So I don't know, I guess you don't probably know this about me or not, but I have a half brother. My birthday is January 6th, and his birthday is January 30th of the same year.
Right.
So we're the same age. So yeah, I didn't actually know about him for a long time, and because I didn't know my dad for a long time. My dad remarried, I'm sure several times, but he remarried and had his wife at the time reach out to me when I turned 18, and to sort of like reconnect. And then of course that got my mom upset and everything, and everything. But all of that to say, like, I grew up with my grandfather as my sort of my father, right? And my great grandfather is sort of my father. And it's funny, you're talking about your grandfather, who you're sure is still out there working and doing all this stuff. It's interesting because like my grandfather is sort of the opposite, where he likes to chill at home, and like he plays like solitaire all day long and watches Star Trek.
Nice. My grandfather wished. So I wanted to elaborate on something that he said. I knew who my biological father was when I was a boy. My mother did not keep him up. He chose to be away from his family. My dad is to clarify, my dad is my stepfather, Robert.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To clarify, that's my dad. And I didn't get him in my life until I was 14, because that's when him and my mother met.
That's really sweet that you consider him your father.
Oh yeah. If I didn't like the way that my name sounds, I know that sounds a little narcissistic, but if I didn't like the way that my name sounds, I would have been adopted by him a long time ago.
No, I get that, man. I really do. My partner's stepfather is, for all intents and purposes, her dad.
Yeah.
So.
And see, there's something to be said about stepfathers too with fatherhood, and that's that a lot of the times they themselves are also dads, right? Because like anybody can be a father, right? Like any man can walk up to a woman, they both do their thing, and next thing you know, now they're parents, right?
Yeah.
Boom. That's a father, right? But a dad is somebody who sits there and he's like, I'm going to take care of the kid. I'm going to take care of the lady I got pregnant.
Yeah.
Her and I don't work out, whatever. Oh well. I still got to help, because it's not necessarily like you're together, but it's respect. That's the mother of your kid. You got to help her out, because if she's without, then your kids are without. It's it's a whole thing. And my father taught me that. My dad taught me that. It's used interchangeably because I don't really talk about my biological father in a good light. So as to not keep it negative, that's just like, that's another place where I'll leave it at as well.
Yeah, no worries.
But no, that's my dad. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh no, that's thanks for the clarification. I was going to ask you too. You said that there were sort of two stories. The moment of this is my life now. I'm a dad. What was your second story?
My second story was when my son was first born, and we got to see him. My son Odin, my firstborn. When we got to see him, it was nothing short of beautiful. I got to help with the whole labor. I was there by my wife's side the whole time, wiping her forehead, making sure she was taken care of. When she's in the labor room, and whether you choose to get an epidural or you don't, you're out of it, man. Your straight adrenaline is going to be pumping through you until it's done, like 100%. And when my son was born and I got to see him, I got to see his little head, and when he didn't cry when he first came out, it was petrifying. That was the scariest 3 seconds of my life. He didn't cry.
Yeah.
The umbilical cord was wrapped around him like a little harness and wrapped around his little neck, and I was scared. And it felt like those 3 seconds lasted an hour and a half of just looking at him while they unraveled him real quick. And I could just hear nothing. No crying, no nothing. He wasn't moving, and I just sat there, and it was terrifying to me. And then the doctor patted his back, and he went, and then like he kind of like looked a little bit, and then he like slumped his head. He just got mad. He was fine. It was just cold. He was just mad. That was it. Like, you know, he came into the world, and he's like, man, it is cold now. This sucks. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm with you, bub. This is trash. You know?
Yeah, man. Oh my God. Like, I don't like being cold either, brother.
Like, I feel you. So I start crying, you know, me and my wife are crying, and it's just a beautiful moment. And that was when I was like, I'm so happy to be. Being a dad is the greatest moment in my life. And then when my second son was born, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel, if I had enough love for the both of them, how I was going to be. Like, genuinely, like, I was freaked out. I was like, how am I going to love two little boys? Like, you know, they're running around. Nope, second he was born, it was the same feeling all over again. Except this time, he didn't cry, but he looked up, and these babies, like these after COVID babies, like Dexter, when he came out, he's holding his head up high, like, whoa, this is crazy. What the hell is going on, dude? I was quite like this. Like, and it's scary stuff. And, you know, it made me pray very hard, man. It made me start praying again extremely hard when my son was born. Because all I could do was just thank God. It was a beautiful thing watching my wife give birth to my son. And it is something that I will cherish being a part of twice in my life.
Yeah. Well, you never know. You could have it a third time.
My wallet begs to differ, sir. About this case. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no. Like, you don't need to do it, but you never know. I mean, you know.
Man, it's the most terrifying. That, no.
He's like, no, don't put that on me.
Don't you put that evil on me? You know, like.
What's a dad rule that you have that your kid definitely thinks is unfair?
You cannot get up 8 times before you go to bed. You need to lay down, and you need to calm down, and you need to relax.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, what was something you thought would be easy but turned into a nightmare? Is that bedtime?
No. Something that I thought would be easy but has turned into a nightmare is letting my kid do his own thing. Because if I let Odin get into something for way too long, he's gonna find some way to tear it up, tear himself up, throw it, launch it, and hide it. And then you'll hear, Odin, where'd you put it? I don't know. Oh, we don't know now. Excellent. Truly difficult. Not trying to be a helicopter parent. Man, I hate that term. You know, I despise it. I use it as a describing of myself. But me and my wife, we like watch our sons like hawks because I don't want him getting hurt. You know, and there's also that fear of like my son getting hurt, but then, you know, the father override of he's a boy, he'll be alright. You know what I mean? Like, it's what they're built for. Like, if you didn't know, like, I got to watch my son interact with one of his cousins, and it's so funny how they're similar, but they're not. Little girls are inquisitive, but they're very cautious, and like, Odin will just fling himself directly into just straight up whatever it is, right? Like, I'll never forget at his second birthday party, he went to pick up a stick, and this little girl was like, yeah. And he threw his hands up. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. He threw his hands up, and he looked at her like, I'm sorry? She said, don't do that. And she's the same age as him, and she's talking to toddler babbling. And I watched the little gears turn in his head, and then he bent down and he picked it up anyway. And she was like, we're both going to die. You could hear it in her acceptance of, wow, that has been a fun ride. You know what I mean? Like, and that was it. And he's just like holding a twig. And he's like, you are panicked for no reason. And then he throws it, launches it. And guess what it hits? One of his presents.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he just threw a twig and hit one of his presents on the table. There's a twig sitting on the table, and I'm just sitting there watching this as a father, right? Because when he threw it, he didn't, like, do it slow like you watch him think about throwing it. You watch his little gears turn, and you're like, what decision did you just... like a little baseball pitch, dude. Nice. You know, and that's it. It's extremely, extremely difficult when you just want your kid to do their own thing and be themselves, but they end up going ham on everything. And you're like, brother, you need to calm down and relax. Because, like, you know, I hate telling my kid to, hey, you need to cool down. But if you let him, dude, he's going to sprint through the house all day, throwing stuff. And I know that's just how toddlers are, but it's like, hey, buddy. And he doesn't really do it in public, right? Which is awesome. But when we're home, that man's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's something you thought would be hard about fatherhood?
Potty training. All for it.
But yeah.
Potty training. Odin practically potty trained himself. He really, like, all we did was like the pee-pee race. And we worked on it. And basically it was like, you gotta go pee-pee every couple of minutes. And we did it for like a week and a half straight. And then from that point on, he'd just be like, gotta go pee-pee. Then he learned to pull down his pants, do all his goodness, and then call us to help him out. And he's perfect. Now Dexter, we don't know. He's still new, so we'll see how he does.
That's fair, man. I don't even remember. To be honest with you, I don't even remember potty training, but I know I did it, obviously, because, like, I know how to do it now, but I can't imagine what it's like. You say you don't? Oh, man. All right. I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. The first one is, what's a song, show, or movie that you hate that your kid now loves?
Baby Shark.
Yeah. Baby Shark. That's fair.
Baby Shark or Bluey.
Oh, you don't like Bluey? I actually love Bluey.
Odin learned from Bingo on Bluey. I'll never be happy again. So whenever he doesn't get his way, he'll throw his head down and start outing like Bingo did and go, I'll never be happy again. And it's like, buddy, you are too young to be saying that. But relax, see?
I mean, that's fair. That's not the best lesson for them to learn from Bluey, but I do love the show.
The show is nice. My favorite character on it is Jack. So you just can't sit still, and I love it.
Oh yeah. All right, and I'm gonna leave you with one more question, which is, what do you hope your kids understand about you someday?
Ever since I was their age, I always knew I wanted them. Because of my lack of having a father at a young age, I always knew what I didn't want to be, which was a bad person / bad father, bad dad. Yeah.
No, that's completely fair. For the record, I don't think you're a bad dad. I know we've talked about this on several occasions outside of this conversation, but I also want to say to you before we fully wrap up, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being honest. And thank you for letting us talk about fatherhood in a way that feels real and human, not just like a Hallmark version of it.
Yeah. The Hallmark movies and like the TV shows, you're never going to be a TV show father because they're always either portrayed to be completely idiotically incompetent or just like this like crazy awesome like, oh, ha ha ha, fun guy. And it's like, no. You know, like whenever your kids start acting up, because your kids act up with their mothers a lot because they're more connected to their moms. Their mom is their safety net, right? So they're more connected with their mom and they're always with her, stuff like that. You know, it's like, oh, my mom is me, right? From a very young age, that's how a lot of babies see their mom, is my mom is me, right? So they just go ballistic. But when dad comes in, when they're having a great time, it turns into an even better time. You know what I mean? And then when they're having a bad time, it's like, uh-oh, I need to get my stuff together. Because I can't tell you how many times Odin will just like lock to an attention stance when he hears my footsteps. And that's all I gotta do. I don't even walk like tough or anything. I just put my foot down a little bit more as I walk and he stops. And then, you know, you just kick on the dad voice for 5 minutes. Like, you're like, what are you doing? I'm sorry. But like, you know, stop doing it. Stop talking to that person like that. Stop doing that. You end up being the disciplinarian. And when I say that you're the disciplinarian, that is like the last resort disciplinarian. Because it's like, oh crap, that's my dad. The same way that I fear my dad because it's like, oh crap, that's my dad. There's 2 ways to that, right? There's, oh crap, that's my dad. And then, oh crap, that's my dad. Sick. My dad's here. He can help me. Or also, oh no, my dad's here. He's gonna mess me up. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's extremely important. And I thank God every single day for my children. I give God all the glory with that. Like, He gave me a second chance with my life, with my kids, and I couldn't be more thankful.
Yeah. Well, and to everyone listening, whether you're a dad, have a dad, know a dad, miss a dad, or just sitting thinking about what fatherhood means, I hope this episode gave you something to sit with. Because at the end of the day, Father's Day is not just about saying thanks. It's about noticing the work, the love, the sacrifice, the humor, and the humanity that goes into being a father. And I think that that's something that's worth talking about. Happy Father's Day. Thank you for hanging out with both of us. Take care, celebrate the things you love, and if you're a dad, I see you. And just like that, this week's obsession comes to an end. Thanks for getting wonderfully lost with me. If you'd like to keep this cozy corner of the strange alive, everything you need is waiting in the notes below. Or head over to my website, mylatestfixation.com, where the magic quietly hums. You can browse peculiar merch, learn the story behind the show, or leave a little offering. Spend $50 or more and you'll get free shipping. Have a dark history footnote, a lonely cryptid, or digital mystery you think I absolutely need to fixate on? Send your thoughts via carrier pigeon, if you can find one with a good sense of direction. Otherwise, the website works much better. And if you enjoyed your stay, share the show with another kindred spirit. That's how our tiny, haunted hearth keeps growing. Stay curious, stay obsessed, and stay human.